Many people have asked me what I would bring to Aso Rock should I win in 2019. My answer is this: just 5 things. Number 1, restructuring and devolution of power to the states and local government areas, as well as security and state policing. This is essential because the power concentrated in the center is obviously overwhelming and seriously undermining the effectiveness of the federal government. Take the issue of the herdsmen's attacks in various places. If the states had their own police network, the president would not have to ask the IG to relocate to Benue State and thereby abandon the rest of the country. The role of the federal government should be to bring in heavy firepower and intelligence capabilities. Number 2, military service. I believe that decades of indiscipline and disorganization cannot be solved merely by good plans and good intentions. A system of strict social retraining is essential. If you look at the most innovative countries by 2018 rankings, the top 5 are South Korea, Sweden, Singapore, Germany, and Switzerland. Except for Germany, all the other countries in those top 5 positions have compulsory military service. Germany, the exception, is, as we know, a country whose national culture is based on discipline, and there is even a historical reason for not having compulsory military service. On day 1, I will forward to the National Assembly an amendment to the NYSC Act that will make it a 1-year compulsory military service. For 5 years thereafter, graduates will be military reservists. I believe that we can benefit from a deliberate, well-structured system of discipline. Number 3, education. It is hardly necessary to point out the value of education, is it? Education is the great equalizer. I will invest the UNICEF recommended amount into education and have the Minister of Education equally become the Minister of Innovation. It must be emphasized that education is not about amassing head knowledge, but about driving innovation to solve real-life challenges. Number 4, energy, that is green and renewable energy. The nation has experienced, especially in the last few years, the dire consequences of having a primarily oil-based economy. Indeed, the oil sector became a cesspool of corrupt practices. Recall the mind-boggling scandals over subsidy payments, which rocked the Jonathan administration and has continued into the Buhari administration as well. The problem is actually not about fuel subsidy. The real challenge is that we are faced with an opportunity to examine our real energy needs and seek ways in which they can be met in a sustainable manner. That is, also being mindful of our future needs given our growing population. Innovation is not a uniquely Western idea. As the world shifts to alternative forms of energy, we cannot wait for them to bring it to us. I have often wondered, for example, why Africans with the hot sun on our heads permanently were not the first to think of solar energy. I will ensure that the Ministry of Science and Technology is focused on making Nigeria one of the world's leaders in alternative energy. In 30 years, filling stations will most likely become obsolete. We have to start today to invent the technology and put in place the needed infrastructure that will take advantage of the huge potential we have in generating green energy, not only for our own needs, but for export within our region as well. Number 5, increased productivity and fair remuneration for work done. We waste a lot of time as a nation. This means that our productivity is very low. Developed countries measure productivity in terms of how much work is done within an hour, and they pay accordingly. We do not even know how much work is expected of different categories of workers, and there is unfair remuneration. For example, the legislators at the National Assembly. Fair, just, and equitable remuneration for work done is one of the most stabilizing factors among any nation's workforce. This is one way that an end can be brought quickly to the constant agitations and strike actions by workers. Overall, we need to create a just and orderly society. And perhaps more importantly, we must create a culture of honest and dignified labor for our coming generations. In conclusion, definitely, a lot of people would expect me to promise to attend to the usual sectors, the economy, infrastructure, health, corruption, etc. The fact is that those sectors will most likely fall in place by themselves based on the 5 areas identified to be focused upon. Government's primary job is to create the right environment which would allow entrepreneurs and investors to thrive in their various areas of endeavor, not to compete with the private sector, micromanaging everything from secondary schools to roads to building railways and generating electricity. The majority of Nigerians now believe that President Buhari should not be re-elected. We have performed that feat before in 2015 when Nigerians decided to vote out a sitting president. So the mission this time is not merely to repeat the same thing. We have to show that we can hold ourselves as citizens to the same standards that we hold our leaders. Good leadership is invaluable, but it will be ultimately unsuccessful if the followers themselves are unwilling to pay the price of change, the change they themselves wish to see in their leaders. My name is Professor Remi Sonaiya. God bless you, and may God bless our Nigeria.